We should be starting streaming. YouTube says we're all right so far. I've seen that message before. uh, Fantastic. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to a sort of long-awaited interview with Mr. Andersen. Surely because of your name, you always get like the Neo comparison, right?
Yeah, well, I forgot my sunglasses today, I guess.
And your old-fashioned Nokia.
Yeah. I would have loved one of those.
I used to have one of those back in the day. So, what's your title at B&O? Is it like head of app design, head of software?
And I actually recently changed position a bit. So my title is now a senior director of digital and product experiences. So my responsibility is basically experience, you can say, that is on top of the products themselves. So I have teams of cloud developers, I have teams of interaction and digital designers, and I have a team of app developers as well.
Okay. So how did you get to B&O? Is it like I take it you're Danish, and it's like the Halo company of the
I'm
country, more or less.
I am Danish. So I've been in the software business for, I don't know, almost 25 years. I've been a
Hmm.
software developer for 20, I think, developing everything from embedded software, cloud services, web front ends, you name it. Consultant, also employed in B2B software companies as well.
Hmm.
I got started for about 8 years ago, and my previous boss gave me a call and said, "You need to come over here. We need to do something over here. We need
I
to build
agree.
something great
Yeah.
from scratch." Yeah, and that's kind of where it started. And then I transitioned from being a developer myself to being a manager about 6 years ago, and then it's kind of escalated from there, if you
So you've
can
been
call it
more or
that.
less with the company when actually it started to become dependent on software for just about everything.
Correct. It's been a journey of insourcing and building new product platforms since I arrived.
Hmm.
So basically, in the period I've been here, we have built the Mozart platform and the Baldwin platform as well. That is the two major ones in the market right now. Of course, the ASE platform is still out there in some regards, and
Hmm.
and we're also still uh, building on that to keep compatibility with formats. We live in a ever changing technology world, and
Hmm.
uh, and our products last a very, very long time, and so they should. And that also means that we need to make sure that they still work when either Google or someone else of the big tech giants chooses to change something.
Yeah, like Chromecast and stuff like that.
Exactly,
When they
exactly
don't
like
tell
that.
you.
Yes, yeah. Well, they give us warning. We would like more, but yeah, there is a process for it, and it is not it's not a request.
No, they're
Let me
telling
just
you.
put it that
Yeah,
way.
like we're the.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I already see in chat. Thank you for not killing older products by software. I mean, I agree. Like that's an actual. I really love that about being out personally, right? The longevity of everything, because
And
speaker doesn't fail.
the technology part and the longevity part is very, very hard to combine.
Hmm.
If you look at technology world in general, especially maybe something like maybe even 10 years ago, it was kind of buy and throw away. And that was a struggling comparison for B&O, I think, where we built to last, right?
Yeah,
But we were compared many, many times to something that were having lifespans of 1 to 2 years, and then you chuck it and buy something new. And that when the demand is like that, when the technology world is built buy and throw away, the infrastructure behind it becomes the same way. So for
yeah,
us to also be able to build something that really lasts and can continue to be updated both hardware and software wise is super challenging, and something that we spend a lot of time thinking about and working on. And sometimes it means keeping updating it. Sometimes it means bridging between old and new.
The reach around, as we call it. I'm thinking to myself, which I have two broader questions, but I think I'll start with this one. So, since the app is effectively a remote for everything, how is the sort of app side work? Because the software on the product side, I take it, has to be compatible with the app, right?
Right.
So how does that sort of internally work? Not like, do you have meetings every day, or do you sit next to each other, or how is that sort of?
We actually sit next to each other. So we sit, well, more or less. So we have several locations, right? So but we work very closely together with the platform teams themselves in coordinating support for old and new products. So when something comes up, either a new product or a new feature, we coordinate internally, and we do that on a regular basis. And the cadences between the two are a little bit different. So the product platforms update maybe quarterly, whereas the app updates once a month. So we have a higher cadence in terms of updates to the market that the product platforms have, and a lot of that work that goes out monthly is more refreshes to UI. Updates to areas that do not directly affect the products, but there is always something for the products as well in every monthly release. Then we do plannings. Yeah, we plan on short term and longer term. So there's these, cycles, if you will. I always have a highly detailed roadmap 12 months ahead. And that taps into a product roadmap that is 3 to 5 years ahead. So this is where we need to make things. So the products obviously need to plan in a lot longer than we do.
Just don't upload any new product pictures.
I have erased everything here from behind. It was all up here, but you missed it.
So how does that testing in that sense go? Because is that mostly sandbox, or is that like actual people in the company that walk around and just start tapping things, or is it a bit of everything?
Yeah, so obviously, that is also where it becomes challenging that our products last for a long time. I have to think about, be very, very systematic about how we approach this, right? Because just to give you an idea of the scale of what we support in the app, we have, I think, support for about, depending on how you count, about 5 different product platforms. That means 5 different types of APIs we need to talk to when we talk to our products. And the number of products themselves we counted inside the app it's been a while, but it must be between 110 and 120 different products.
Yeah, easy.
That also means the QA task is humongous, right?
Yeah.
So we are currently looking at working differently with this and being every time we release something, we need to look at what has changed and be smart about what we test, because it's simply impossible for us to test every combination of all of these products in every system. So we need to look at what did we change, what possible complications and effects could this have, and then test that. And then we have an app dedicated QA team. Then we have a product, Wi-Fi Flex product dedicated QA team, and then we have an on-the-go dedicated QA team. And they all do what you just say. They have a systematic way, but they also do what in the industry called monkey testing and pokes around.
Well, if you need some pokers, our Discord is full of people that would love to poke.
I know, and that's why I keep an eye on it.
I mean, and that maybe a silly question. Like, right? It's not very. It's such, but for something like, for instance, like the current BioLab 50 is probably the same for 90s. In the app, if you set the default volume to something different, it seizes up and you have to reset them. Though it's fine in browser. Because that used to be okay in the old app, so to say. Is that like a software incompatibility on the speaker side, or is that more of something changed in the app side and the handshake is just not?
So you're saying that sounds like a bug report that I should note down. for me
Yeah.
here. But so
But
the
again,
50s
it's
and
like
90s and default volumes that shouldn't have changed at all. That's a completely
it's just
old
when you
API.
change it, right? Like if you go into like the triple dots at the top and configure page, then
Yeah.
it's fine somehow, I think.
Yeah, but that's a web page on the product itself. So
Yeah.
that is using a different API. But noted, we changed. What could have happened here is that we are actually we're building upon a cross-platform technology called Xamarin that hits both Android and iOS.
Mm-hmm.
And currently we are updating all our UI to a new format, a new structure. And this is where it might have happened. But I noted. I will take a look at that. It's not on my radar.
No, it's one of these things that hardly anybody ever does, right? Like you do that setup essentially, and maybe once, like a year in, thinking like, oh, maybe it's a bit too loud, and therefore you probably also don't test it. Because I mean, it still works in another way. I don't think it's something major. That's why I kind of bring it up, because so many of the app complaints you see are so wildly varied between platforms. It seems it's kind of
it is, and that's the complexity that I'm dealing with, and I constantly need to prioritize between those, as I said here. So this has obviously been missed, but this is also because we didn't touch that API. So somehow this has obviously gone awry without being caught in our QA, but it will be now.
Could that also be like a compatibility difference? Because I take it you work quite differently for iOS than you do for Android.
It could. I can't say at this point, but it could. Yeah, they are very different in many ways.
Which is preferable in your, like, I take it because B&O seems to like aim more at the iOS customer. Like, is iOS easier to work in, or is Android a bit of a wild west, which also makes it hard?
I think, in general, if you look at the platform itself and the technology we use, there's no difference. We just see variance in the Android hardware that makes it difficult. Let's bring on an example, right? So we've always, for Samsung phones, had a hard time connecting to our headphones. And we struggled with it for a very, very long time. And what we found actually worked was to implement a way that we just retried every call to the Samsung phone 20 times, and then it seemed to improve. So that phone is just, okay, try enough, and then I'll accept in the end that you are trying to do something with me. And that's what makes it difficult, right? Because the iOS hardware is
so standardized.
So standardized. So maybe some of the older ones are a bit wonky by now with the latest iOS updates, but the Android hardware behaves very, very differently, because some of the bigger Chinese vendors, they rewrite some of the, for example, the Bluetooth stack. Maybe they have their own variant of this and do not use the standard one, and someone exchanged something else, and they all use different chips for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and so on. And that means that experiences will vary, unfortunately.
Do you have to account for that in testing? Because I take it that's almost impossible to a certain degree.
It is. So we buy the big ones and test on those. The latest one on my list is foldable phones. I've been watching that for a while, but I've
becoming more prevalent.
Been also saying, okay, if it really takes off, we'll spend more time on it. But it's been a very niche product so far, but I'm seeing more reports on it now. So we are soon going into acquiring such a device and figuring out the little kinks there. That's another example of, they just changing the way the UI works. They're changing dimensions of the screens on the fly. You can half it and then open it, and it becomes a full screen, and then it just behaves differently. And we need to figure out why.
Yeah, it's sort of like, good luck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think, at any given time, we are maybe testing with something between 5 and 10 Android phones, and we try to keep changing them out and having the big ones. So we have Samsungs, we have Pixels, we have Huawei's. We're also getting some Xiaomi's. We also have some few Nokias, but we're trying to keep it.
I almost forget Nokia still exists.
Yeah, but they seem to make these fairly cheap very, very standard Android phones. I'm not sure who produces them. It seems like something that is just branded Nokia, and I don't think they have much to do with it. Just reusing the brand name, still have some credibility, maybe somewhere.
Quick question from chat. Do you have physical test devices or also automated simulated tests?
So we have been a little bit back and forth on this. On the products, we have a large automated test suite that tests everything on every build, and does it on every product, and it is everything from very, very simple stuff to fairly advanced stuff, such as stereo pairing and make sure the delay between the two speakers are the same. For the app, we had a large automated testing suite at some point, but we simply did not get enough value out of it compared to the maintenance load. So we scrapped it a few years ago. We're looking into picking some of it up again, but we are going to approach it differently this time because it's super high maintenance. So you need to really be careful on what you implement. Otherwise, it will just constantly break for no reason.
I take it's probably also like what we just discussed, a bit platform dependent, as in like iOS is easier to do that with.
Yeah, it will, but what I would like to get out of it is to test some of the standard stuff so we don't have to do that every time, and then we can get a little bit deeper with the manual testers. So create an account, log in, add a product, some of the very standard stuff. So that just runs all the time.
Do the manual testers actually have a lot of stuff at home, or do they just go throughout the office building and just changing everybody's radio and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, it's Corona challenged everybody in that regard, right? I think the QA testers was the only ones still coming into the office, but brought the smaller stuff home to be able to test it there. Otherwise, they actually were one of the ones that got a dispensation to come to the office. But you're absolutely right. Everything in the office will be configured, set up a million times over and over again. If not by QAs, then by developers themselves. So don't bring any stuff that you don't want fiddled with to the office.
Leave the missus at home. Is that also... So I take it in that sense you also get to be angry at your colleagues over at the software side sometimes because stuff gets weird when you do it.
Yeah, we try to fence it off a bit, either by naming or having isolated APs, and then platform team uses one, app team uses another, so we keep our own stuff, but it challenges us in the way that, for example, let's say that we're testing the pop-up that happens in the app, and if you open the app in the office, it'll just say pop, 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 because it finds a million products, right? So now we also have requests, can we please turn that off, because we cannot use it in this environment, right? So it gives you certain challenges to test some of the more the customer facing features that are actually meant to help is not helping in such an environment. So that is actually one of the areas when you're testing Bluetooth products where you want less noise, or you're testing this onboarding. That's some of the areas where it helps bring stuff home and having a more true environment to test in.
So this came to mind, like with Mozart, is it still able for your neighbors to take over your speaker, or is it because at the old ASE platform, I've had that several times, right, where all of a sudden at 3 a.m. in the morning, a speaker started blasting.
You have to enable it now. So we learned the lesson there. I received a lot of support tickets on this because we were receiving some from the app at some point, and I got a look into it, and I can really relate to a person being angry about being woken up in 3 a.m. in the morning because someone that had a blast took over his M3 or whatever in his bedroom. Yeah, that was not good.
I would kind of want to answer ask, is this sort of a myth, or is there some truth to it? But like what I've always been told in terms to networks and just the app and products in general is that ubiquity is advised. But is there really such a big difference also in like the controlling of things when you have different networks? Because
there is a surprisingly big difference. And again, here, I think it's a little bit of the same that I discussed with, when I described the different Android handset vendors, that a lot of them are maybe basically the same with a bit of management software on top. But then there is the bigger, there is probably, you can probably narrow it down to less types than that are APs out there. But there are differences. There are differences in different parts of their software stack about different behaviors on those networks. So you will see a surprisingly variance in behavior across these types. And I think the reason why we recommend this one is that we know it works. We know, and we have tested it within, so we can kind of say, okay, this one we have verified as one of the ones that is working. That does not mean it's the only one.
Yeah.
It's just that it is very, very resource heavy for us to go out and do this for a multitude of different vendors.
I think people in general don't understand that the standard isn't standardized fully.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
I mean, it's like your Apple TV constantly taking over, right? Like, it's supposed to be on the CEC standard, but is it really?
Yeah. Standard is I think it's very, very challenging to make a standard where there's no room, where there's no gray, so everybody just knows exactly what's going to happen, and everybody interpreted maybe some of these items a little bit differently, and then hence they become incompatible or misbehave.
Yeah.
And Wi-Fi and network is just incredibly difficult, and I think it's just that we know that some users or customers are experiencing this issue out there, and we're fixing items every day on this, but it is just incredibly complicated.
Yeah, for anybody listening, like ubiquity is advised for a reason, because it's good, and I mean, even the Ubiquity mesh I've never had a problem with, and but if you read about mesh, it's a mess.
Yeah, it is. And especially, let's say that you, for some reason, accidentally place a product just between two, where it kind of
sits in between APs.
Sits in between two, and they're almost equally the same strength. Then we will also have a difficulty with that product, because it keeps hopping back and forth. And that is not good for connectivity. So
with regards to the current state of the app, it seems on the customer side anyway that there was a major change like 6-8 weeks ago or so. What was the impetus for that? Because as on the customer side, it sort of felt like we're going to be different, and we don't kind of know why.
No, we have a plan. So we've actually been working on this for more than a year to get to this point where we could actually start rolling things out, and it's been a massive endeavor internally. So right now, or what was the case before, was that the app was designed for 2 to 3 products, maybe a little bit more, and there was a lot of compromise where we just said, okay, we on-the-go products or headphones were treated more or less the same as Flex products, Stage products, almost also the same. Mm-hmm. But we saw a lot of problems in this approach. First of all, you had a lot of unnecessary clicks. You had also a lot of experiences where you get into dead ends. So let's just say an example of this was the multi-room tab. Let's say I had a product that was not able to play an experience, and I went to the multi-room tab, and then I just got to know, well, you can't do it. Mm-hmm. So you have to go back. Hopefully it told you why, and usually it did. Then you have to go out and change something and go back and figure out what to do. So there was a lot of, and I know this was commented on Beer World as well, a lot of deterministic behavior. That was hard to say today for some reason, where you clicked on something, you went something, but you were not entirely sure if it worked. So it is, and I think there is when you're a long-term user on the app, I think you get used to these little quirks, and you know how to work around them, right? And then you know also, when I click Deezer and nothing happens, then I go in and I just start a track, and then the next time it will work. Or when I go into multi-room, I also know, it's because I didn't do this. But for the myriad of users that are maybe not as savvy or as used to the app, this was very, very difficult to understand, and also incredibly frustrating for them the first time learning the ropes. So what we're trying to do now is to, after identifying and analyzing some of these navigational problems around product control and content control, we're starting to improve them one at a time. We were maybe not good enough, as we also said in the beginning, to communicate and introduce what we were doing. So it was basically, here you go,
Good luck.
figure it out. And we learned from that because we got a lot of internal and external feedback.
Yeah.
So now we are implementing an introduction feature in the app. So when we introduce something new, we can tell you about it, so you can learn something about it.
Like what you get when you install a new product. That sort of like, yeah, that was my suggestion too, because that's excellent. Because that actually works, right? Like you're sort of semi-forced to go through it and acknowledge it.
Yeah, and exactly. And we are going to start a little bit lightweight, so you're not going to see this in every page you go into, but we need something that we can get out into the market fast, because we are kind of midstream between a lot of changes that we want to roll out in the app. You've seen the changes in the player and the multi-room, and you've seen the changes in the control screen, which is now midway. It's being rolled out to more and more products as we go, and now we are feeling where we maybe assumed intuitivity, but is not quite there yet. So we are getting some feedback on where we need to help and to introduce.
The thing I think is most divisive in the control side is the round volume versus the straight volume.
Yeah, well, that's a very subjective thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I got, and that's the funny thing about some of those, I got both, thank you for getting rid of that ridiculous control, and others saying, I love the round control, please bring it back. So there is also both sides of that from our users.
I think I'm the minority in that I don't care as long as it functions, right? It looks good both ways, but there is something B&O-ish to the roundness, because it seems like it's quirky to be quirky.
It is, but it maybe look a little bit quirky to be quirky, maybe. And of course, you can identify this round control with many of our actual physical controls, and that's where it stems from, obviously. But it simply took up too much space. You cannot fit things around it, and it's giant, right? And that's actually the main challenge for our UI designers, that we want a more effective UI. So we cannot fill half the screen with a
wheel. You probably also have to take into account like iPhone minis and that sort of thing.
A lot of screen sizes, yes. Indeed.
So that makes sense. How do you get feedback in, not the volume wheel, but in general, of whether it's logical or not? Do you go through the company first and have people see does this work?
So it is internal mainly. We've had external tests as well, but they are on and off. So we are listening to a lot of the feedback that is coming in from the market over time, and incorporating this in the new design. In terms of validating new designs, that is mostly internal currently. But reviews.
Do you go to like other software people, or do you go to like the ladies that still do the stitching? And it's like, does this make sense to you?
No, I think we do both. Right, so there's internal testers. You need both perspectives, and they will be very different.
Yes.
So software developers have a thing about they can work around quirks in the software and maybe expect it to some degree. But the other types of users have zero tolerance in things not working. So that is, we need many different types.
I mean, that's partially why I like being a beta tester for the app, especially because it's. I mean, B&O as a company, the customers are getting younger, but there's still a lot of people that are 55 plus, right? To put it gently.
Yeah.
And if they don't like it, I mean, if they're a bit of collectors, like they're gonna get mad at some point.
Yeah, we experienced that hardly when we had too little contrast enough fonts, for example, or things were too small, too small font sizes. You need to be able to also take into account that people maybe not, as you say, in 55 plus, that did not have their glasses on their nose when they were operating the app in front of the TV, perhaps.
Well, yeah, it's also, but I mean, as you design something, right? To you, it seems logical because you know where you left everything. But if you've never seen it before, it has to kind of also make sense.
So true, so true. You can never expect people to just figure something out on their own. I think I have some good examples from Apple as well. That I think it took me a long time to figure out that you could actually long press a lot of the controls in the control screen and find several layers of functionality underneath. But until you have no clue, and you find another way in there. And then when you find out, you say, wow, how easy is it? But how would you know unless you try to interact with everything on your screen in that way?
Yeah, so if you're not told, then you're not gonna know. Yeah.
No. it's just you have to get some help. You have to instruct to some degree, and that is definitely a lesson learned. This is the biggest new change we've done in a while, and I think that is the biggest lesson from what we rolled out so far, is that don't just throw it at people and expect everything to just be found out.
Yeah.
We need to be more careful.
So is the idea also then that the UI will be more or less unified for everything?
So the new control screen is meant to happen for all the products within. I'm hesitant to give you a timeline exactly, but within the beginning of 24. There's some of the bigger products there that are
2 weeks. It's sometimes
some of the bigger products there in there that are challenging, but we have got in general very, very good feedback on the control screen, except maybe the long press, which is, again, to my point about iOS, until you know it's there, it's very difficult to actually find something underneath. I think it compared to the last one, I called it a long row of gray boxes. So I think this one gives you the essentials up top. Everything is reachable by your thumb, one-handed, which is also a design goal for us. It is more live with animations. It's more live with colors. So it is both, I think, more visually pleasing, but also easier to use. When you get the right instruction, and that is the piece that is missing. So we're working on that.
Yeah, I see some comments in chat, and it was the same for me because I'm such a long time user. I got so used to the old layout that how it's now is actually a learning curve again, because it's sort of like where is everything? Like I mean, yes, it was a lot of presses, but I knew where to press, right? Like I knew where to go.
But you're absolutely right, and that is, I think that is, again, here as to say again, that is the mistake we made when we rolled this out, that we did not give a proper instruction to this. Your Beosonic is now here, and so on, right? So you know where to find your regular stuff.
So, but I take it the idea is that for, let's say, all the Mozart platforms, it's going to be roughly similar, right? Because right now, for like the theater, you have the gray boxes with sound modes, whatever, and you adjust them on the top corner. But if you go into A5, you have to long hold it. It's so different.
And that is, it is painful for me that we have this stepping stone in between. I would have loved to do them all at once, but I was not able to execute that. So either we had two choices. Either we had a long parallel track running, and then we threw everything out there with a big bang, or we did it category by category and learned something also in that sense by releasing the first wave, and that is what we chose to do. But that also means that when you are having both products as exactly as you describe, I have an A5 and I have a theater. Right now, that is not good, but that is the period I'm trying to shorten as much as possible.
Makes sense. So, but I mean, it's more like I'm more asking. Like the goal is to get that sort of in line, similar enough, right? Like
They will all have the new control screen, all of them,
yeah,
every product,
even the ASC platforms.
even the AC platforms.
Okay,
Mm.
because I had a question. I have a few that come to that. Like the Beersound level lost its battery indicator for a while, and it seems to be back now. Was that a
Mm.
mistake, or is?
That was an unfortunate mistake. I think it should not have been released for level. So it was
Because I even lost it on my
how to put it.
portals.
Yeah, exactly. So the battery indicator got us into a little bit of trouble. It was not supposed to be released for the products with the battery indicator, so that was definitely a misstep. So yes, it is back for those. Just before you get that comment as well, it's still missing if you stereo pair.
Hmm.
So that is in the works as well. We regarded the stereo paired ones with the battery indicator as something we could live with, and still get it out there. Without that, it's not maybe the most important information at that point.
No, but it's like range anxiety, right? It's like if you have a Tesla, like if you're new
Fair.
to battery things,
Mm,
I still have it. I've had these for a year, and I still underestimate the longevity of the battery. Like every second, third hour
yeah,
use is like, ooh, maybe I should charge. And it's like, there's
yeah.
20 hours left. What am I doing?
Yeah, but that's the same, yeah, for phones and Teslas, and yeah, you're absolutely right.
I mean, I have family members that once their phone gets to around 50%, it's like, I must charge because maybe I
Yeah.
won't get through the day. It's like,
Mm.
what? So, yeah, there's different strokes for different folks, sort of.
Yeah, but you're right. Um,
Do you check in with dealers a lot for how the
we
because
actually have I've talked with a few dealers based on also Discord feedback.
Mhm.
I was in touch with Stevie from the Netherlands. Got a good amount of feedback from him, and we're working together with the designers to address some of the issues that he has flagged. Then we have a monthly with the technical trainers internally, and the
Mhm.
technical trainers are, of course, so that is kind of one step out from the dealers themselves. So they bringing us a lot of valuable feedback directly from the dealers. What are they struggling with? What features requests would they like the most? Basically, getting a feel of what it's like in the store when they're talking to the customers. I think that is super important, and it's also now being both a developer and managing developers for a while, having direct or almost direct contact with the customers is super important for a developer. If you get too distant,
Yeah.
you tend to care less. When you kind
Well,
of feel their pain, this is where you move.
yeah. I take it also like a lot of the very high net worth customers, right? Like they're not public because they don't want to be. So they will
No,
never complain on the forum or anything like
no.
that.
We have a few that is kind of a VIP testers, so we get a contact to a few of those that are dedicated and want to help. But you're absolutely right; it's more difficult for the huge installations for these individuals to get feedback because they tend to be private, very private, for good
Yeah.
reasons.
It makes sense.
Mm.
Maybe a sillier question. Will there ever be a dark mode? Because right now the B&O app is like the brightest thing at night I have on my phone.
Yeah. I am I'm hoping, but I am not promising. But two reasons here. So the app is huge, right? And we're
Hmm.
going through a rework of the entire UI currently, where we are changing to a newer technology. And if we do this right, there might be some opportunities for it. But I'm a yeah. I know the wish has been out there for a while, and I see why. Especially operating music on an iPad in a dark room, it lights up like
Yeah, it's like, oh,
yeah,
I can't see my
yeah. It's too
TV.
much.
It
But
because also it's pure white, right?
yeah. So we as we done for the player, we might do a wall mode that is a more subtle way of doing it, but I will be hesitant to promise for the full app.
No, that makes sense. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff to do first. It's more of I guess, a quality of life quality, because I think the hardest is the startup page, because that is there's no product image. It's just and white, right?
And white, yeah, true. Yeah.
I mean, I think if that was inverted, just that splash page, that would already be quite.
That's actually a good point. I didn't think about that. That's a good point. Note taken.
I have a question. I think a lot of other people. Who do we complain to when certain product images aren't available? Especially if now the whole custom department is up and running. Because I take it there are some requests, but if you have your pink 90s or whatever, like they show you on the website.
So we have an internal. So bespoke versions are not available yet. So if you have something that is completely customized, we can't do it. We will be able to do this in the future, but currently we can't. All other images should be there. Even atelier versions of our EXs and so on are all there. And if we miss some, it can be fixed, and it can be fixed without an app update. As to where, I would go through normal customer support and it ends up with us.
I mean, it's something like that just isn't there, but is the Biosound Theater TV experience. There's no picture of it on the floor stand as sold, right?
Glad you mentioned that specifically. We're currently looking to fix that. That was actually some of the feedback from Stevie as well. I would like to see the theater full stand with a TV on top.
Yes.
So we're looking into this right now. The problem is the sheer number of combinations. Sometimes when you have a certain color of foot, certain color of wings, certain size of TV, making it match completely is not easy. So it's getting all the right assets into the app and in the right format.
No, I understand, but like it's available on the website, right? Like,
but
I mean,
it is.
I'll put it this way: like I have Beolab 50s. They're aluminium with oak and the aluminium fronts. I know that is not available in the app, but I kind of don't care because it's also not available on the website.
Yeah, so it's a combination. We're not.
I mean, it's close enough. It's a picture, right? Like, I'm not going to go, ooh, there's aluminium missing on the front of my phone. But
I think to Stevie's point as well, the feedback that we got there, these customers chose exactly this product for a reason, and exactly that combination of colors for a reason, and they want to see it represented correctly in the app. And I completely understand that. That's also part of the luxury experience. So it is something we're working on to do. That said, I think if you combine different fronts, different materials, that is not an official combination, then it will be difficult.
Yeah, no, makes sense. I have a different B&O radio question. I've seen several people now ask, like, why is it no longer possible to add in a URL? Is that because B&O radio is like I mean, it's different than TuneIn, we all know that, but I personally prefer the B&O radio, but even in net radio era, I think this was possible to add a specific channel.
We are working with our partner to get this. It's been requested quite a few times, and it's also getting to support. Can I please add this, and how do I do it? Right now, I think we can do it. It's a manual process and has to go through our partner, and there's a turnaround time. But we are actually able to add it. But it's very manual, so you cannot do it on your own. But it is a popular request.
So if you're somebody like that, it's probably best to either B&O support or your dealer, probably.
Exactly. Then it will get to us at some point and get through those a bit too manual channels right now and get at it.
All right, that makes sense. Also, another question is there any idea of adding a recently played section in like the Deezer side of the app?
Yes, we're working on it actually. So we're working on I can give you a little bit of a verbal sneak peek of what we are working on in the future as well here. So content is one of it. So we are revamping the content area. That is getting a complete overhaul. But they will take a little bit of time. But it's been, so we are, again, here we're taking it one piece at a time because the app is so big, and the content area, I think, has been the same for 3 years.
Yeah, 4 years, something like
Yeah,
that.
something like that. So it's time for overhaul, and we're doing that now. And recently played is part of that start page that we call it.
This sort of leads into, I think there was a lot of confusion. I think there still is to the term, was it non-determinative sources?
That was what I tried to talk about before, non-deterministic. So
Yeah.
so the thing that I was trying to convey in that message in Beer World was that so we have a sourcelet that is exposed by the product. So I can play these sources. It's line in, it's HDMI for TVs, and so on and so forth. And there are also music sources there. But the music sources can only play if there is a play cue in the product at the current time that you press it. So if I press Deezer, there might be something playing, but there might not. And that's what we're trying to clean up. So we only have the sources in there that will always have a function that we know works in every scenario. That was what I tried to convey in that message, and I seem to not get across.
Like, because if there's nothing on Deezer as such playing, there's no point of going to, let's say, the home page if there's nothing going on.
So yeah, and then the experience you have. So let's say I go to my Beosound 2 and I click Deezer, then nothing will happen, and then I need to go to Deezer anyway and start Deezer, and then the next, if it then pauses, and I come back to it an hour later and press Deezer, then yes, something will happen, but I don't know. So the way we want to do this is that we want to bring a different way of accessing that content in an easy way that is outside the sources drop down.
So would it be helpful if everybody just stored a playlist under the My buttons, essentially?
So that is exactly one of the areas that we're exploring to do this. So we want to say, we want to leverage the favorites more to have these quick actions. So if I want to start these, or if I want to start Bang & Olufsen Radio, these favorite buttons are what we're going to build upon. And we're also looking into making those available where you want them to be, for example, in the player. So let's say I have a product selected. It could be that then my favorite buttons for that particular product was available in the player as well. So if I'm listening to radio, I switch to my Deezer Flow, for example, and vice versa. So it is, I know always what is on number 1, number 2, and number 3. I know exactly what is happening, and I can control it.
As I can tell you, as from the customer side, you would have never thought about this until like an explanation of this, because it just sounded to a lot of people like, wait, so Deezer is going and everything is just going away. That's kind of what it sounded like.
That is not the intent. And again, here, that is back to what I mentioned earlier, a poor introduction to the changes that we are making. We felt that the sources there was very hard to navigate, and we got that from new users as well. And then back to my earlier point that when you're used to it, you also have those little workarounds. But new users had a very hard time operating it. And then we, at first, honestly, we cleaned it up too much. And I think we're striking a balance now. And now what I see from the feedback in Discord and also on Beer World is what we're missing is mainly the content sources.
Yes. Yeah, it was a bit weird sometimes when you go to the drop down and all you see is line in. It's like, wait.
Yeah.
Where's the rest?
What about the rest? Yeah.
I mean, I'm currently on the beta side of things. I don't know. Is this also like is the official version that is out? Is this also a bit beta-y at the moment, for lack of a better term?
I'm not seeing a higher defect count than we had before these rollouts came in, but there might be a few with the new UI that we haven't noticed yet. But we should have verified all the new features before coming out, except the source list. That was I think it was not a bug per se. It was just cleaned up too much with maybe not enough insight in the way it was used. So the customers were using this in a very deliberate way that we were not fully aware of. We are now.
Yeah. I'm maybe going to beat the dead horse, but what is the whole reason for the essential stop of support for the moment? Because so many people that have one still love it.
It's supporting the app.
Yeah. Because right now you can't even add tune-in stations anymore, not even through the device. You have to go to tune-in, and then tune-in uploads it over the web to your moment. And
I know moment user have had a hard time, and now it seems that it's being degraded even more. I have this very, very hard job at also stopping some things that people love, because if we need to keep everything alive from the app side as well, it is very difficult to make bigger improvements and bigger changes and this is also, back to what I said about the difficulty around longevity and difficulty around keeping things alive. The reason why moment has been neglected there and left out is because there's a screen. And I know there is a workaround, and it is something. It's a certain flavor of ASC, so it's not ASC. So that means it's also more difficult. Yeah, so it's also difficult to update the product itself, and that means that now, from an app point of view, I not only have to talk to ASC, I also have to talk to moment, and there we had to make a decision.
Makes sense. I think this similar question, which is probably more important, is the NL-ML converter. Is that also sort of stopping? Because that is such an important device for so many people.
It is in its essence, the most Swiss Army knife product we've ever made. It can do so many things. So it's fantastic, and it's also hard.
Yeah.
From my chair, no, it's not stopping. But it is very difficult for me to catch all the different use cases and customer in the way that it has been installed for the different Masterlink products, because I simply I'm not able to replicate these setups. So there will be some of
these people still live in the analog era.
Yeah, and I when I am building this new interface and have to work with the NL-ML converter, I am finding myself lacking in different Masterlink products to plug in, knowledge around the gateway itself. We are trying to keep it working, but I see also from Beer World things missing still in the app. I will see what I can do to close those gaps. But we will not spend time on evolving those use cases a lot in the new app. We will keep support. That's the
well, maybe
basic.
It's more a comment for the bosses or the salespeople, but I know for a fact that a lot of people that have whole houses, if that is discontinued, if they can't tie it back in, they just going somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that's not a use/software thing. It's already an NL-ML availability product-wise, right? Like you have to be lucky that your dealer still has one.
And we are fully aware of that, and we are looking into bridging that in different ways as well. But we are keeping the ML and the converter in general supported. There's no plans to discontinue support in the app, but I know there's a few use cases missing currently with the change. I don't have the full overview of the list right now, but I know mainly from some of the Beer World posts that I saw some of the things that we used to be able to do, we cannot do anymore.
Yeah. mean, and again, these people are generally not online people, so it's hard to know. But if they happen to come across this, like, is it go to your dealer, let your dealer know to tell you?
The more requests we get, the higher it goes on the list.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What are sort of your views on something totally different, like Rune support? Has that ever come across your desk, or is it like it's a licensing thing and it's hard? Or
it's been talked about many times. It's never made it into an official roadmap, but I know that it has a strong niche following that overlaps, I think, quite a bit with our audience as well. But to what volume, it's not been brought up in. So it's been discussed as a potential roadmap candidate, but not officially yet. No.
Is it sort of are they easy, or have you not looked into that far, like Deezer, where it's sort of plug and play and they allow you to some freedom? Or
I honestly don't know. It was not on my. I wasn't. It's not meeting. My team that implements this part, so I would need to ask a friend to be able to answer that question.
So I guess again, for people that want it, let B&O know, because otherwise, like, how do you gauge it, right?
Exactly. Requests through service or dealers really helps in these prioritizations.
Makes sense. I see another question. Is there gonna or is the app gonna allow an EQ in stereo paired Bluetooth speakers?
Ooh.
Or is that more a product software side of things?
Yeah, it is. It's a limitation that doing EQ or Biosonic in a stereo pair actually requires support in the DSP acoustical side of the products, and they currently don't. So no plans for that. So
seems like you have your work cut out for you. I mean, there's a lot of stuff still going to change, but at least there's a roadmap, right?
There is. So some of the things so now we are almost on top of the hour, as you so said, that passes fast. So some of the things that we're looking at right now is to make it easier to navigate your products. So basically make it a lot easier to find what we need, especially if you have more than one location, especially if you have a lot of on-the-go products and flex products. So getting rid of or organizing your product list in a different way that only shows you what's connected and makes it easier to find what you want. That's one of the things that is coming. So you get rid of the very long list of gray products when you're, for example, away from home or in your summer house, something like that.
Yeah, right? That makes sense. I mean, if you ever speak to marketing, I would tell both of you, like, maybe have your flagship products on top. I know they're not sold the most, but like, if the first thing you see is like an A1 versus some 90s, right? Like, it's a marketing thing. It's aspirational.
I completely agree. And you should also be able to configure this to some extent yourself. And this is also something we're looking into. So there is, and this is part of an overall perspective. I said at one point that it was very much designed for maybe between 2 and 5 products, and that is what it was meant for. And now we're looking into improving the experience in both ends of the spectrum. We know we have a lot of users with only one product, so that will be improved. But we also have a lot of very dedicated users with a lot of products, and they also have a hard time navigating the product list, and that is also going to be improved.
I have 10, 15, like 3 headphones and then a bunch of speakers and things, and it's sometimes a bit thing. Before we we've hit the hour, I'm going to be sneaky and ask for something to be changed potentially, because I've publicly been asking for a while, and it's for theater owners. It's the sound info. Could that be on the main page of the theater? As in, because you now have to go to the triple dots, and then you go to signal info, and then it tells you whether it's Atmos and how it's put out, right? Like, could that just be under here somewhere?
we have really discussed how much front and center this should be, and is this a audio nerd feature, or is it something that deserves to be mainstream out there?
I think because it's such a new platform and it's the first time, it's so would you say technologically advanced. People just want to check, like, am I getting, like, I know it says Atmos here, but am I actually getting it? Am I getting what I paid for? Like, I can now tell, but I still do it so often. I think I do it at least once every 2 days, and it's sort of like, why am I doing this the whole time?
So we're actually redesigning the control screen for the theater right now to fit it into the new design. So and we discussed this exact thing also for the player itself. So when I'm there, can I see what codec I'm playing on? So I hear you. I think we can make it easier to get through. Even though it's maybe not one of the what we call the hero features, the two first rows, then it's higher up in the row. But
I mean, even if it's just tap into your product and you go down, because there is a sound settings thing, right?
Yeah.
But through there, you also can't get to it. So even if it was just there, like, even if you scroll down, that's fine. It's just that you have to go into that back menu, and for some reason on my phone, I can't swipe on anything. You have to X out. So it's it's kind of, it's not annoying. That's overstated, but it would be nice.
I think I can help you. So let me talk to the designers. I hear you. Feature request received.
I'm gonna say thank you very much. I'm gonna say to YouTube, I hope we can do this again. Come join the Discord if you potentially catch Mr. Andersen's eye, and you can ask more things. And thank you. I'm gonna stop YouTube now. Bye, YouTube.